Welcome in, fresh in the morning, guys. How are we doing today, Pat?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on, man.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on. We got Pat Rifino here. Pat, you've got a quite extensive background, very athletically inclined for sure. But man, I've been seeing your work for probably a good year or so. Is when it got on my radar. You got some great pieces, great articles, great interviews. So appreciate you coming on today, man. Great time. I'm ready to talk to you and get to know you more.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, I think I've been at this game since 2021. Sounds about right. But I've been a spring football aficionado for a little bit longer than that. I'm originally a New Yorker, and we what's the best way to describe it? We got a taste in my lifetime, at least, of the XFL in 2001. So I remember the New York Hitmen, and our head coach, I think, was Jerry DiNardo, who's an alumni of my school. If I'm not combining two things together, but yeah, so that was it was my first go around with this stuff, and then kind of fell in love with the UFL and the Spring League and the AAF, and then eventually, I got an opportunity to start writing about USFL and XFL.
Yes, sir. Now you write about XFL, USFL, and everything in between, correct?
Yeah, I do. I'll do some CFL if it's like relevant to me. Like I keep tabs on a lot of the St. Louis guys because that's where I'm living at right now. So a CFL guy makes a move up to Canada. I'll write about it usually because I probably know them, to be honest with you, as well. And we'll do some I. It's kind of the same thing for the IFL as well. Like if it's someone that's in my space that comes there. I still keep tabs on like CFL and IFL, but I'm mostly following like players more than teams. I don't really have a favorite team.
Understood. And you give these guys like an avenue to just voice themselves, and so that's pretty cool, man. That you do that. There's a lot of interviews on there that you probably won't see, but it's filled with great information and great things that you can apply to many situations. And like for example, right now on the screen, I've got your interview pulled up at the showcase from I think it was early summer with Russ Brandon.
It was July 7th, and I'm a little butthurt that video didn't get a little bit more love than it did because I definitely saw other people taking information from that and using it as their which it's, and I don't mean that in a slight, but it kind of felt like you know they were doing a similar video got more views and I didn't. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. I don't really get too geeked out about these things anymore. You can't. I'm doing my own thing.
I totally get it, man. And hell, when that came out, you really brought some great info to light that we did not know. I remember just about different items within the XFL. And I'm going to play a portion, just like 10, 15 seconds of this, if it's cool, because I just want everybody to see kind of your style. I enjoy the on the ground reporting, especially when it's legitimate and you're not just trying to get a big rile or a headline or something. But yeah, dude, let's show this off. I agree with you though. There was this is the scape we swim in, unfortunately. And
That's part.
yep, I try my best whenever I get information myself personally to always credit sources, or like if you see something on Twitter, like make sure the person you're getting this information from gets credited because it's important. It's not the all need be, but I mean, this you obviously worked for this information. You're spending your own time, spending your own money. So I get it, man. Let's kick this up and we'll go from there.
When I look at the 2020 version of the XFL, it gets criticism it doesn't deserve because it was going well and we had a pandemic that changed all of our lives. Yeah. Right. So what's happened for us is, I wasn't involved in it then, but for us to be able to come back and bring the XFL back, we're committed for the long term. It was easy. A year ago, I was saying the same thing, but people needed to see it. And I think people now realize that, we're in this for the long haul. We're obviously here in St. Louis for the very long haul. And couldn't be more pleased with how the league kicked off in year one. And we look forward to continuing to move the needle in year two and beyond.
Yeah, man, that was a great interview. I remember, I was sitting at the edge of my seat waiting for this information, and you came through with some great stuff. So once again, I appreciate your work, dude, and many of the others do as well, even if they don't say it.
I think that day alone, man, I can pull it up real quick, but I think that day alone, I probably had 7 videos I put out that day, and it was from all spectrums of what was going on. You had obviously Russ Brandon, Anthony Beck tipped his hat to some things. Eric Magwood was there, and I'm going to pull them all up real quick, but Eric Magwood was there.
I got you on the screen.
Yeah, there you go. So if you go, so start from Steve Austin, and then, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different videos, and actually there's 8, because up top is I talked to a bunch of the players
right here.
who yeah. So I had Anwar Thompson, who played at Mizzou, Sean Merriweather, who played at Texas Tech, it was just some of these guys that you didn't really know about, which is awesome. Sean Merriweather was a JUCO guy and then went to Texas Tech. And that's just some of the videos. I had, way more that some of them, the audio wasn't the best. And, it's just, you're doing this on your phone, it's hot. And then I'm holding the phone up like this for, 3 hours. And it was pretty, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, Sean's a good dude. I think he had 180 tackles his senior year, and he had some CFL interest, but his biggest problem, in my opinion, was he was a little bit flat-footed on his game tape. So, and then there's one guy, his name is Luke Drone, and he was a quarterback, and that's Kid Sutherland. He's a D3 guy who he works out with a lot of these pro guys. But if you go to Luke Drone, went to Western Illinois, played in the arena, played with the Bills for about 5 minutes, then had, I think, a short stint with San Francisco. And when I say short stint, signed in the off season for a week and then released before he even got to the building. But Luke is awesome because he's a high school football coach now. He's an offensive coordinator, I think, at Mount Carmel High School in Illinois. But he is 38 years old, and he just tried this out on a whim after playing pro arena ball for 5 or 6 years. Hasn't played football, and he talks about that, So, Luke was one of my favorite people to talk to, and, he's not that big on social media, but one of my kids, he talks to him pretty regularly, so I have made sure to always voice my support for Luke. And, also we got to talk to, Jay Spurgeon is always fun to talk with, and in addition to Ball Hawk One, who I don't think his real name is allowed to be said, but
No, he doesn't like that.
I is I have him as his name in my phone. I call him that.
Yeah, I told you in messaging, I didn't even know his real name till you told me. He never told me he was on the show.
Yeah, well, I met him at the games twice, and then I met him at the showcase, and I think that was a fun part of it too. Is Jay, Dirty. Call me old fashioned. I like to call people by their real names, but
okay.
Jason, Spurgeon in the Legion, and there was a couple other guys, and I'm missing their name, but they were out there, tailgating, supporting, and not only that, just hosting food for these guys as well, and it was fun for me as well. It's never a bad time when you see any of guys you guys you see during the season. So, it's always nice to have the comment. But yeah, I'm just in the parking lot at Missouri Baptist University and just chilling with, my man over here who's dressed up in face paint and a couple tequila, So,
Dude, he's a great character to interview, man. I had him on a couple weeks ago, so I like the authenticism in this. I like how y'all are literally in a parking lot having an interview. It's awesome.
Yeah. I have my little mics, I was testing them out, see how they went, and just kind of went with it. I've talked to both those guys so many times, and it's kind of a free flowing conversation, and it's the same thing with like even interview AJ McCarron and Coach Beck, and it's like that was the best thing about XFL kind of providing these outlets to like do these daily media, or I guess we were pretty daily at one point, daily media trips that you see them now. It's not that awkward conversation anymore. It's just like, hey man, and I always loved Coach Beck because I met him when I was like 6, 7 years old when he played for the Jets, and when I met him in person the second time, I guess it was last November, I was like, this is the second time we've met, and he goes, oh, when did we meet? And I was like, yeah, when I was a 7-year-old, the 7-year-old at Hofstra, you guys did training camp there. It was that's. I remember seeing you. You're the hot the hot thing in camp because 4 first-round picks the Jets had on. So it was pretty awesome times back then. Still are awesome times. What am I saying? It's still fun.
I'm going to ask you more about some of your experiences here in a little bit, but I wanted to cover your show for sure because it needs some more eyes on it. Your show is Analyze and Educate, correct? That's the title?
Yeah. It's so the way I got that title is when I was contracting overseas, my buddy ran an Instagram page called Analyze and Educate. And still does. His name Brody Kirkpatrick. He's a former Marine. He's a poli-sci guy. And he does amazing work with like just the geopolitical nonsense of like overseas conflict. And him and I we talked, and it was just kind of I got a lot of love for him. But originally the channel's goal was to just kind of be, and they call it Funker 3, I think it was Funker 350, which is kind of like a G level version of Live Leak of like combat videos.
Interesting.
So if you go down to some of my earliest videos, I'm doing interviews with guys that I contracted with, and like we're in Blackwater, and like my buddy Austin.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like these are guys who I worked with in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and I was doing some different things, and I keep them on there just because they don't really get views anymore, so it's not like I'd be losing like hours or whatnot. I just keep it on there just as like a reminder, like I don't forget, and it's it was just kind of me, and I did a lot of those videos overseas too, which was fun. I was in like my chew or in my building, and some of the my time in Dubai, that was me in Haiti.
Wow.
Just going through the carnage. I used to do a lot of stuff in Haiti. I still kind of do.
Well, since we're talking about it, bro, I mean, why don't you tell us more about your background? I know you're prior military security. I don't know too many details. I did look you up, but I mean, I try not to creep on folks. So if you want to just share more about yourself and kind of like your background, that'd be awesome. Because I mean, this military stuff is great, man, and it's cool how you've evolved your channel into what you want it to be, and you still stayed humble to your original content.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the service for a couple of years, about 4.5. Did the Afghanistan thing while I was in the service. Originally, I wanted to, when I got out, become a football coach because I played football in the Marines as well. Like I wasn't very good, but like I just loved the game and just goofy stuff like that. And I got hurt a couple times. Just concussions and whatnot. And I coached for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. The thing is when you're in the military, like I say like one season, right? And I say one season, but that one season could be 2 games because you could have a deployment, and you're only around for 2 of those games. So it's like I think total games I played and coached was probably like 9 over 4 years and something like 4 plus years. Yeah,
so you were busy.
Yeah, we all were. Like our op tempo was pretty high. When I got into the service, we were pushing on what was it called? It was like Afghan. It was the Afghan push. They were expanding the service, so they were doing these battles and conflicts called there was the Battle of Marja, and we used to say banging and singing, and a lot of stuff push in Helmand province and whatnot. So like from I want to say 2009 to like 2013 was a pretty heavy like U.S. casualty and NATO casualty and Afghan security force casualty rates, and I mean it was pretty kinetic from just being a part of it. And then after that I got out. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, coaching football at like a charter school. It just didn't work out. I was a little bit young and brash and thought I knew more. And the coach, I don't want to say he was old school because I don't really think he was, but just even looking back on it now, I don't think it would have. We just wouldn't. We weren't right for the staff, in my opinion. So got done with that, and met a gentleman. The coach couldn't really pay me too much, so I still had bills to pay. I ended up getting into private security, which I thought I was just going to be a bouncer at a bar, and gentleman's driver, and I did that for a while. Moved back to New York. Just kind of kept falling into jobs. You know what I mean? Like, hey man, like, can you help out? Hey man, can you help out? Hey man, can you help out? And the next thing I know, like I'm on a plane to go to Kosovo. Just traveling the state. I did Kosovo for about 11 months, 10 months. Came back, went to Indiana, worked for a family there. And obviously there's more cooler details, but, there's some things, NDAs and whatnot still that are still active. And, in 10 years, I'll talk about it more. But, you did that and went back to Afghanistan for about 2+ years. Got real burnt out. Some things happened, and you can Google what happened in December 2019 on Bagram Air Base, and then everything in between. I was a local national advisor, and the brunt of the people who take the worst stuff during these conflicts are always the locals. And every day it was someone dealing with loss, and it kind of just broke me down after a while. And it got to the point where I wasn't doing the right things, and I had to kick back, and was given that option to come home after about 2+ years. I say come home early. My goal was 3, but I didn't make it. So maybe if I stood a couple more weeks, we would have seen what happened. But after that, COVID happened, and I went to New York as a medic. So, I kept compounding the trauma. And then, I'm watching this. The XFL is going on. I thought that was pretty cool. And, then all of a sudden, because I used to watch AAF games overseas all the time, man, because the time frame worked out for me. And they used to be, like, streamed on YouTube and whatnot. So I would watch AAF games, and I knew what the spring league was because I lived in Texas for a while. I tried to get a job in the spring league, And I remember getting geeked out because the former Texas quarterback, David Ash, was in the spring league. Johnny Manziel was down there. And there was just a lot of like these random names he hadn't heard about. And I was like, this league's bad, real cool, And but yeah, around 2020, did a couple more like little short stints to Haiti and whatnot, and then I just kind of realized that, especially because 2020, everyone dealt with their own stuff, and I mean we were just nonstop because I went from Afghan to COVID to civil unrest. I used to work with the media, which is funny because now I see the media guys in the press box at the XFL games, and they're like, "Yo, I know you from somewhere." I'm like, "Yeah, Frank, who's doing their first when they're out in the riots and whatnot." How it's like, "What's up, man?" So, like, look at me, because I'm fatter now, and I used to keep when I did the riots, I had a big beard, and then I shaved it because I didn't want anyone to know who I was, So that's the big thing. So like now they see me looking like this, and they're like, it's always funny when we cross paths with some of my reporters, So it's we had a good time hanging out. Oh.
Well, I'll say publicly, man, we appreciate your service. I don't know exactly what you've done or what you've had to do, but whether it was private or actually being in the military, I appreciate it. So thank you. I know that sometimes we tend to forget what people sacrifice in those positions. So I know. Do you feel like this show and football, it was kind of just a way for you to gather yourself and focus and get back on track somewhere, or what?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me I still work in the field because I'm not making crazy amounts of money doing this, so I still have to keep my foot in that community sometimes, which to me and my partner, she's not really the biggest fan of, but neither am I. Just this morning I had to help out some guys do a movement at 3:00, 3:30. They were coming in. I needed to help them out, do some logistics for them. And, last night after practice, we got out a little bit early, and I would have rather came home, but I had to move some vehicles around for guys. And, but it does unfortunately, pays the bills, and, we're compensated very well for it. And, it just, I mean, with football, it's just I'm a normal guy, they throw a couple, PBRs at me, then I'll sound more like I'm from New York, and I'll get a little bit looser about it. But I mean, it's something that when you're in a echo chamber of people, all you do is talk about that stuff. It's it gets a little exhausting because, one of the coaches and I, we were talking, about, this a current conflict, and he was explaining about it, how he felt about, some of the things on social media he was seeing. And I was like, yeah, man, here you go. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I mean, this is what this stuff is like. And he's like, how do you even have this stuff? I'm like, oh, I just know people who are over there, And he's like, that's crazy to me. And it's like, I mean, it's you sometimes gotta realize, you're kind of around people who are different in a good way, And
Yep.
I like being a part of this community because it's normal, you know what I mean? It's, I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but you don't got to be on a certain type of edge all the time. And, it's no, it's just a lot more relaxed. And even bad days at football practice are better than bad days, even working stateside sometimes, dealing with certain clients and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, dude, we appreciate your service. I do, especially. Many military in my family. I'm not military, but have a lot of respect for them, and I know returning to life is kind of hard sometimes when you've been geared in that kind of function for so long. So I'm glad that you found the outlet, seriously, because I know personally many men that, this doesn't get talked about enough, but they don't get the help they need when they come back. They can't figure out how to integrate back into a society. And so it's great that you have found that outlet, and it's productive, man. I mean, like, before I actually researched you, I could tell you were military, but I didn't realize you were so much military, if that makes sense. I didn't realize you were that guy until I started actually looking into you more. So
definitely not that. I've worked with
You're more that guy than most of us normal Americans, brother. And you've done more probably than what we could ever do sitting in our couch watching TV. So once again, I appreciate it, bro. Just don't think that people definitely we remember, and most of us here, we respect people like you who've done what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I try to tell people a lot of times too, like, you shouldn't respect me because, or my military service or anything. You should respect me because, or if you think it should be because, I'm doing air quote the right things and being a decent guy. I was like, just because, and I always call it, silly summer camp is what I used to call I still call the military. They're like, what's boot camp like? I'm like, I don't know, summer camp, but like, I throw some terms in there. Like by people who can't read above a fourth grade level or something like that. And it's a lot of people will use the military as a crutch to extend their opinions, or like, well, I'm a veteran, or like, and like everyone's politicized, but you get like these guys who are like, you'll see it like, look, this person's a veteran, and then this is their opinion, and I'm like, dude, this dude is not qualified to talk on like foreign policy national, because they went to Afghanistan and like they did what they were told by some dude who was like 26 and just happened to be, I mean, like, when people ask me certain questions, I'm like, bro, I am not qualified to talk on that. And they're like, well, my friend in my sociology class was in the Air Force, and this is what he had to say. I was like, friend, and I'll tell him that to his face. Yeah, but
you said you cut out on that one. You said your friends are what? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Friend's an idiot. Your friend's silly.
There you go. Yeah. No worries, bro. I get it, man.
It's sometimes people might use their like, it's like you see these like veteran owned and operated, and I'm like, yeah, this product is terrible. You should not buy it from a veteran because a veteran made it. You can say that about any. That's a different.
The imposters are real anywhere we go. That's for sure.
Yeah, and a friend who we are completely on the opposite ends of like the spectrum of life was, and I get a little political here, but I was like, in 2020 when, people wanted to lift up, certain things, I was like, that's the new veteran owned and operated, right? And he goes, what do you mean? I was like, a lot of these people are just going to make terrible products and throw like X, demographic owned and operated, and people are going to buy it, and then they're just going to cash grab this. And then he was like, a year and a half later, he was like, dude, you're right. I was like, yeah, I know I'm right, because that's what people do, and people do things that aren't cool, man. Lack of a better term.
You're correct. I agree with that statement. I'll say, I don't know, one veteran used product that I know that I like is Black Rifle Coffee. I actually like that coffee. It's pretty good. They do a good job. I don't know the details of what goes on there, but I know I've heard him speak.
I've met Jared Taylor a couple times. One of my friends served with him. I mean, Matt Best was a contractor as well. Evan Hafer, a contractor as well. I mean, I don't know. I have some opinions, but opinions don't. Everyone has opinions. So, I mean, Yeah, I mean they've helped some refugees and whatnot, like the Afghan refugees, which is something I've done as well. So I mean, I'm pretty supportive of them doing that. So other things not so supportive, but it is what it is.
Yes, sir. Understood. So I mean, in terms of right now, I mean, you're still doing some work in the security background, is what you're saying? Is that?
Yeah, still that is my bread maker right now. Unfortunately, we're beginning our transitioning out, but yeah, that is right now how I make the majority of my money.
Understood. And then also, and we haven't talked about this much, but you're a coach.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, no, I'm a assistant defensive line coach at Missouri Baptist University. It's ironically where the XFL Showcase was there. My boss is two of my bosses technically, right? My head coach is an amazing guy. I interviewed him. Just full of football knowledge, good dude. I'm not the most religious guy. I've kind of re-found myself in faith, but he is, legitimately a man of God, and it's something that's kind of helped me get a little bit more on the track of finding purpose and whatnot as well. So he legitimately good man, good husband, good father. Got to know family a little bit. His parents as well. And he's a Colorado guy, which is the sexy thing right now, right?
Yep.
4 years at the University of Colorado, under Rick Neuheisel and Coach Gary Barnett. Was a part of a couple Big 12 championship teams. Played, he's listed as a wide receiver, but a special teams guy. Wasn't the biggest dude, wasn't the fastest dude, but he got a couple opportunities to make some plays. He is on their 2001 or 2000 highlight film. He has a pass completion to Patriots tight end Daniel Graham, which is pretty awesome, to a first round pick. And at that time, Colorado, people were losing their mind about Colorado. Now it's from 1990 to 2002, man, Colorado was the bee's knees. And even you can go a little further than that. After that, you had guys like Brendan Schwab was there, and
yep.
Joel Klatt. But when Coach B was there, he had Daniel Graham, Eric Bieniemy was on the staff, Vance Joseph was on the staff. A guy named Tyler Braden, who was an NFL first round pick, was there, and Andre Gerard I think was there as well. I don't know if he was before or after. And, he had some remnants of the national championship team as well. So I mean, B's experience is, and I feel like sometimes the kids, don't pick his brain enough just because the amount of connections he's made there. And then coached at a Division II school for a while. In addition to some high school, he was a GA at Colorado for a little bit as well, and I think position coach. But he coached, I believe it was Riley Patterson, the kicker. It was Riley Patterson, the kicker from he's in the NFL now because he's in our local area. But yeah, he's got a couple NFL guys under his belt as far as guys he's coached, and and then the other gentleman that I work under is a man named Charles Coe, and Coach Coe is probably one of the he's been doing this for 50 plus years. He was a Kansas State guy, played there. He go through it. So he was Kansas State, played minor league baseball for the Detroit Lions in the 60s or 70s, played 5 weeks with the St. Louis Cardinals of the NFL in the 60s or 70s. And
wow.
Then he's old. Which he is one of the greatest men I've met in football. His son is Michael Coe, Super Bowl champion with the Giants. His grandson is Rodney Coe, played like a cup of tea in the NFL. Coach Coe has coached at Pitt. He's coached at Mizzou. He's coached at Memphis. He's coached at Tennessee. And then he was the head coach in 2007. He was the wide receivers coach for the Oakland Raiders. And then he was also the head coach of Alabama State University, which a young man, which he calls him Reggie, but we call him Coach Barlow, was his, next in line. Who, Coach Barlow became the wide receiver or the quarterback's coach, and then the head coach and whatnot. But yeah, he was under the Tavares Jackson era. It was like Tavares Jackson, and then became Greg Jenkins, who ended up playing wide receiver for the Raiders for a little bit. But yeah, and then I think CC did a stint as like an offensive coordinator for FCS school for a little bit in Texas, and then he's been at MoBap since 2014, and he's a stabilizing presence. Just kind of doing it because he loves to do it. And but yeah, he was on DeMarcus Russell's era when he was there in Oakland, and it's funny. CC's the best because you'll bring up a name. We were talking about XFL one day, and I was like, what was Coach Barlow like when you were like coming up? And he was like, oh, Reggie. It's just like, obviously Coach Barlow is a big name, but there's been names like, talk about Jerry Rice. He's like, yeah, right. Rice was, he's just off killer. And you're like, what do you mean? And then the kids will do that sometimes too. Is we'll be in meetings and they'll just be like, what was this player like? But they'll use their first name, and I'm just like, do you know that guy? Could you call him right now? And they're like, no. I'm like, say his full name. I was like, yeah, CC's built different.
Yeah, you tend to forget that once you start following somebody and they're famous and you meet them, they probably don't want you using their first name. Proper way to do this is Mr., Mrs., Sir, Ma'am, but I don't know, man.
It's usually, with the coaches, when I interview them, it always is, coach, and then they'll usually tell me like, hey, you can call me, Austin or Jason or Jed or whatever they want, and you're pretty cordial, but then when I'm around players, it's always it's always coach, and it's the thing. It's kind of like in the kitchen, everyone calls each other chef as a sign of respect more than anything else,
Exactly. So in terms of coaching, is this something like, are you going to try to keep pursuing this? Are you going to be keep going with this?
Yeah, this is the next career step, give back. I do have some other businesses that I are a little less stressful that I would, love if they kind of supplemented more income, which based off the projections, it looks like they are. But it's like, I don't know if I need to go coach at, the NFL or, the University of Alabama, so it's like you got a school like MoBap is like kind of awesome for me. It's NAIA school, which is about the equivalent of division football. A lot of guys come out of the NAIA and have good careers for them. Grandview University is one that continually puts a couple guys to the NFL and whatnot. But in that sense, it's just, I'd be at this program for a couple of years and, we'll see what happens. And, just right now, the only thing I could say is that I play Missouri Valley College tomorrow. And, even on my computer, when we were doing our preload, I was looking at film and, just looking at their roster and just kind of, seeing if one of them, I got real good guy, defensive end down there who, I want to see if I can get him to, work a certain move. If maybe that's something to work to kind of free him up a little bit against a guy who's kind of standing straight up. So, we can talk about the future, but I'll coach as long as it's something I can do, something I want to do. I love coaching at the college level. I've coached high school. I've coached, the semi-pro and all that stuff. And, this right now, this level of football where I'm at, I feel is pretty competitive, and it's been, a lot of drinking from the fire hose. And every time I think I know something, I don't. But, it's, I work with some great guys, a great staff, and, they've taken me in, and, they understand I can't do this full time right now because, one, availability of, job position, and two, need a certain dollar amount to transition out. But in the end, it's been an amazing experience.
Sounds awesome. I'm jealous. I used to be a coach, but it was public schools, and it was not enjoyable compared to what you're speaking of. Very little football, more of everything else is unfortunately how it turned into.
Yeah, and there's definitely some mentoring you got to do, and you got to talk to these kids about, there's a lot of filling in the gaps of, their parents and what the parents didn't teach. And we were talking in the meeting the other day. A kid was like, "Yeah, I would like to play in Canada. I think that'd be cool." And I was like, "Okay, do you know the vet minimum there, or the rookie minimum?" And it's $58,000 or $68,000. And I was like, "Okay, cool. Then what's next?" And it's you got a tax up in Canada, down here, and you need to find a place up there, and it's this and that. And then he's like, "So yeah, it's not really $68,000." I was like, "No, it's not." He's like, "People do it." I was like, either A, they have hooks up there to where they're not paying for housing and doing this and doing that, or B, there's no other choice, and they're so close to the NFL that this is what they can do until the USFL or the XFL calls, and they can make less money on paper but tax less down
Exactly.
Alabama or something, or Ohio or whatever it is. I was like, because in the end, and it's also 21 weeks or something like that. And these kids looked at me like I was crazy, and I was like, "Do you guys not think stuff?" I don't be the old man yelling at the sky, but I was like, I thought about this stuff all the time when I was their age.
It seems easy when you're young. I know I was an athlete as well, and I actually signed to an AIA school back in the day. I didn't play, but I signed.
Where'd you go?
It was actually called Lambeth University back in the day. It was in Jackson, Tennessee. It's Middle Tennessee something. I don't know exactly.
Okay.
But Hugh Freeze was there at that time.
Oh man.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I said you're dating yourself. You're doing you're doing that.
Yep. And that was a couple years later. I mean, he was gone the year after that, and then he had, he got shipped off a few different times. That program folded, and then someone bought them out there, another college chain. But yeah. I know the NAIA guys, they got a lot of skill over there, and it tends to be a lot of athletes that don't really have the grades, I feel like. But there is a lot of skill.
I think our minimum is a 2.0, and NCAA is a 2.3 or something like that. So, I mean, it's like every level of football, though. There's always second chance guys. There's always guys who want to stay a little bit more local. Some of these kids are extremely realistic. They're like, "Hey, man, I can go." Our big school in St. Louis would be Lindenwood, right? And it's
I'm familiar.
Some of them are like, "Yeah, I can go to Lindenwood, but I'm not gonna play as much. I'm not gonna, it's gonna take a while for me to get on the field, and there's no guarantee of that. I'd rather go to Missouri Baptist or any NAIA school, and have a chance to compete and get an education. They still have my major, and and just have fun versus ride the bench for 3 years at another school. And and that happens at our level too. It happens at every level, but some kids realize that the NFL is not in their cards pretty early, and they still want to play football because it's a great game, and it's something to do, keep you in shape, and it mirrors life in a lot of ways, and it's not a bad shtick for them. While others, once they hit that reality of, okay, I'm not going to the NFL, like they're just done with the sport. Being a college athlete right now is a pretty profitable time, but I don't think a lot of kids realize, as far as like I was talking to Matt Bierman about this, who's Blaine Gabbert's QB coach, Blaine and Brett Gabbert's QB coach, and it's like, man, they don't realize how much like money they're throwing away, like on the side, even with their scholarships and everything, man. Like, like scholarship is year to year. You get a 4-year scholarship, and you got to perform, or else they'll take that bad boy away. And it's like, what, you gonna foot the bill for 3 years at a private university? Okay, bud, good luck.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's expensive.
Sometimes people make those impulsive decisions to quit playing football and then don't realize you have to pay for college now.
Yeah, that as a youth, that's what drove me not to play, is because I had a scholarship worth probably $6,000 a year, but tuition with board was close to $30,000 for the year. I'm sorry, it was $6,000 per semester, and then tuition and board was like $30,000. And I went to a state school because I still got debt, but it was like max 2 G's a year, so it was worth it to me. I do miss playing though.
Yeah, coming out of college with what would that be, $8,000 in debt? That's a win. That's just,
yep.
You can off as a car payment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, keep your high school car, and we talk about that as well. But yeah, man, I keep your high school car. Working extra overtime shift or something like that here and there, and then. 8 G's is a lot of money, but it really isn't. If you want to save 8 G's, it's not that hard.
No, and I'll tell you, that's the cheap part is the undergrad. The where I got in debt was the master's degree and the specialist program. That's where they got me, because that shit's expensive. And
yeah,
unless you're actually doing it for a position like an education, it's not really useful, in my opinion. So that's me speaking, just because I have that background.
Yeah. But you gotta
have anyway. It. Yeah, dude, you do gotta have it, and it just sucks that it costs so much. It's kind of like, once you get started on that path, you better finish it, because you can't go back. You can't start over.
Yeah, well, it's we get a little off topic here, but the thing is we've always told everyone, you have to go to college to get a good job. You have to go to college to get a good job. And then everyone goes to college, and it's like, well, some of you guys, are kind of incompetent who went to college. And It's like, you have a good job because you don't, I hate saying that, but it's like, if everyone's got a college degree, you know what matters? Not the fact that you have a college degree, and like going to high school, it's really what it comes down to.
I agree with you.
You gotta have some life skills. And that's a harsh thing to say, but it is the true reality of it. Like, you got all these, everyone got a college degree. Okay, like, what can you do? Well, like, nothing, because all I've done is gone to school. Okay, what can you do? Well, I started a landscape business, and now we gross $96,000 a year as a kind of a side project. All right, man. Well, you seem like you can balance a budget and show up on time, so you're gonna have this job with your college degree now. Great.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah. In terms of an athlete, it's tough too, because I don't know. It's a lot of factors to really involve besides just playing. So that's what I think about it. But yeah, let's move on, dude. We talk about this for 30 minutes. So you basically told us how you got started covering sports. In terms of coaching, do you want to share how you got started in doing that? Like, what drove you to coach?
I just always loved the game, and always loved like the analytic part of the game, and just kind of doing like watching film, watching the All 22, watching on YouTube, like people talk about football. Excuse me. You know, and it just kind of, when I interviewed Coach B, we just kind of hit it off. And, you know, I was talking to him, and, you know, he was asking me if I ever coached before. And I was like, you know, like, I have here and there, but, you know, really like looking at some possibilities of maybe next year. And he said, hey, I got some, you know, possible like small time, you know, like part-time assistant opening, you know. And I said, let me think about it. And then I saw him at the showcase, and I talked to him, and I said, hey, you know, like, I talked to him, you know, girlfriend about it. And, you know, it's just, to me, it's starting to make a little bit too much sense to do it. And he was like, okay, send me an email, we'll talk about more. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it, dude. Like, full send. And you know, August 5th to today, or August 7th to today, excuse me, you know, it's been nonstop. And, you know, I'll always be grateful for him for the opportunity, whether I do this for 1 year or, you know, 25 years, you know, because in the end, he gave me an opportunity to coach the college ranks and learn from him, and, you know, everyone on his staff, you know, like, it's a pretty diverse staff. You got guys who have been in the program from their freshman year to now. You got guys who came from other programs, you know, that were all Americans, like we talked about Coach B, and CC, like Coach Co, about their backgrounds. You got guys played at different levels without the game and whatnot. And, you know, it's just so many different guys to like talk to and like pick their brains. And, you know, just, to me, sometimes it's information overload sometimes. But, in the end, you just kind of try to learn one or two things from these guys a day, and, you know, what to do, what not to do. And hopefully by the end of it, you're a little bit more prepared. And that's kind of how I feel right now is, you know, I'm starting to, you know, obviously we're focused on this year, but I'm starting to build my, like, practice plan for next year even. So it's definitely a, you know, stepping stone and whatnot, but it's something we continue to work on. And, you know, off season we'll be working on a lot of my own stuff as far as, you know, just reevaluating film and how Coach B wants me to do things, and, you know, just kind of continue to grow as a coach, man. It's really, really all I can do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Stay humble. And it sounds like you're learning while you can. So that's awesome, man. Like I said, that was a dream of mine as a youth, is just football all day, all night, waking, thinking about, you know, that was my life, I thought, but things worked out differently. So it's definitely awesome that you get that experience, man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's been a couple things that, like, I wonder what would have happened if I did this or that. And, you know, I try not to really think about it anymore, because, like, you know, it's not in my wheelhouse to control things that, you know, from the past or anything. So, I mean, it is what it is. You know, sometimes things happen a certain way, sometimes they don't. And, you know, in the end, I'm pretty happy where I'm at in life. I have a great woman by my side who I'm grateful for. I have some really good friends, and I have some really, you know, kick-ass experiences. And that's really all that matters, you know. Writing a good story, and that's really it.
Agreed. I got a question from Mike G. He's editor-in-chief. He helps out with the show. He said, who are your coaching influences? So, I mean, who's your role models, I guess, for coaches?
I mean, I really don't have it. You know, something I've learned in life is you don't really want to meet your heroes, you know, in that sense. So my coaching influences is my staff I'm with right now. Because in the end, like, that's my team, and we all need, like, you know, I need to work with them as they need to work with me. And, you know, there are certain things I have from, like, my high school coach. There's certain things I have from a guy named Kerwin Scott, who was one of my coaches when I was with the Marines. There's another gentleman, I forget his last name, but his name was Gunny John. He was the Marine team coach that I picked from him. And, he was an awesome guy, but there's a lot of things he did that I wouldn't have done. And, it's, in my opinion, there's a lot of things that, like, I like what, like, Coach B does and CC does. And, it's just, like, things that I feel that would benefit me if I found my own style to do it. So, like, right now, still pretty young in the game and, taking from there. A lot of people say, like, I want to be like Saban and whatnot. It's like, do you even know who Saban is? Do you even know who Bill Belichick is? Like, actually know who he is? Like, it's one thing when you've been on their staff and whatnot, but, like, that's the thing is, like, I feel sometimes when you meet these coaches and they've never actually met the people they want to, like, be around, like, I don't think that's in, the truest form, and, when you get around some of these guys, and even you don't have to be on their staff, in my opinion, but if you are around them at the seminars and, like, everything like that, then I think it's a little bit different, in my opinion.
Understood. You're saying it's different now that you're a coach rather as a spectator or a fan. Now you kind of got a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and I talked to a couple, like, USFL coaches a decent amount, like, just one or two XFL coaches, like, when I have questions about certain things or just like so I mean I try to get my brain pick everyone's brain. These are people I've actually had conversations with and whatnot, so that's what I try to do. Just continue to ask questions or like if I have a question and I'll pull something up on film, I'll send them a video. And there's even a couple, like, XFL players who are, like, my age that I talk to as well, and we kind of just kind of say, like, what do you think about this and stuff like that. So I mean I'm pretty fortunate that I've met in business a couple of people, like, prominent athletes and whatnot, and then through the XFL I've met more cool coaches, and so it's always, like, picking everyone's brain to kind of find, like, the best way for me to, like, either learn a scheme or, like, teach a skill or something like that.
Understood. Let's move on. We'll try to hop off in about 20 minutes if that's cool, dude. I don't want to keep you all more. I'm sure you got stuff to do. If you do need to roll, just let me know. All right, no worries.
I think we're on a good path still.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure. I know you're a busy man, so that's why I asked. So, in terms of interviewing or covering a sport or an athlete, what do you find some important factors? What do you really try to show individuals at home or grasp for yourself, for your own knowledge base?
I mean, I think I think the biggest thing for me is when I'm talking to people, kind of just getting to showcase them as a person, especially when you talk to, the college coaches and whatnot. Excuse me, sorry.
You're good.
I'm going to talk to
early
coaches and whatnot. I always tell them, it's like, hey, this is an advertisement of your program. So, the things that you don't get to tell these parents, we can talk about here. And, like, we can, it's like usually me, like, I'll do my homework, obviously, kind of look, a lot of it's like, hey, man, you were, here, and here. What about these three places you've been at? And, like when I could talk with Coach Babcock from McKendree, he was working with Joel Klatt over there. Obviously we all know who Joel Klatt is. And, we talked about some stories with him and everything. And he had Josh Johnson as his quarterback when he was at University of San Diego. So it's like you have these guys, like, I love sharing those stories because, it's the next best thing of, like, what was Joel Klatt like as a 25-year-old? What was Josh Johnson like in college? Like, so it's always cool to showcase some of that, and just also get the insight. It's kind of a recruiting pitch as well. We talk scheme, we talk some of the guys who've been in the program. We've talked about a lot of different stuff. Talk about them a little bit. When I had Coach Mendez on from from William Woods, we talk about, just his influence in Texas and like bringing that up to Missouri right now. And, just looking at the list. And then we talk, when I'm not interviewing coaches, we talk with John Huff of GSV, talking just, that's more of like just two dudes talking ball and whatnot. Matt Bierman, that was the recent interview that was with, Blaine Gabbard's trainer, and he's Brady Cook's trainer, and Cody Schrager, done work with Cody Schrager, and go down the list. It's, a lot of those guys are just talking ball. We're talking about like the kids and whatnot as well. It's a lot of, different, just you got to gauge conversation. It's knowing people, you know what I mean? And sometimes you get the opportunity to talk to some of these guys, and it's just a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot of just like, you got to have the question, like, you talk to Russ Brandon, you got to have 3 or 4 different questions lined up pretty quickly. And then, you talk with, maybe Clint Sig. It's a little bit more informal because he's kind of, he's around my age. And, I love Clint. Clint's one of the, greatest guys I've ever interviewed also. So it's it's a spectrum, to be honest with you.
Understood. And that's what I have to ask. I mean, I've asked that question to quite a few individuals, and I've gotten a different answer every time. So it's insightful. And I get it. I mean, it's almost like when you're talking to them in their professional sense, you have to stick to that kind of script. But once you get to peel that backwards a little bit, you can really get to know an individual, their memories, their background, and that, I don't know. That's what I value more most of the time, but it's not appropriate for every situation. So I get it.
Man. Yeah, and like when I had Clint on, it was his first time he's ever been in studio. And he's how old? Clint's, I think, 25, 26. He's younger than me. He's a little bit jazzed up, He's getting ready to go to his first professional camp, and I was like, "Hey, man, you good?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I was like, "You want a Zen? Like, just to like calm down a little bit, bro?" And he's like, "Yeah." So, I mean, Clint, I always got a lot of good feedback from that interview with Clint. A lot of people have said a lot of good things to me about it. So, I'm always hold dear in my heart. That was my first one in my studio. There's 2 guys I always hold dear in my heart. Like from an interview sense, it's gonna be always Clint Sig for coming in studio, and Terry Myrick of the Michigan Panthers, because he was my first interview in person. And my girlfriend is a big Terry Myrick fan now because I was in Atlanta and he met me at my Airbnb. It's a deal.
Wow.
And I'm doing, then the visual didn't work, so I had to put like audio or like templates on the audio, and I was just like, it was a slideshow, but us 2 talking, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and he was uber, and I remember Terry says to me, like I always get water for everyone who comes on, right? Like I always have like fancy water, and there's 2 waters there, and I forget, there were Fiji's, and he looked at it and he goes, "Is this for me or something like that?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "No one's ever done that for me." And I was like, "Give you what?" I was like, "What?" I thought I was doing like the right thing. Like, yeah, all right, dude, whatever. I mean, you can keep it, man. That means a lot. So I'm like, "Thank you." And I was like, I don't know, like you come on my show, you have some water, like. So yeah, it was, but yeah, and I've talked with Terry's dad a couple times too. He's a pretty good guy as well. So it's those 2 guys will always stick out in my mind.
Understood. That's what the next question was. Describe your best media experience. I don't know if you want to pertain that to the interview or not, but figured I'd ask.
Anytime I'm in the studio, it's my best media experience, man. Like it's always cool. Like the next group of people I'm gonna talk to, you know what I mean? Like it's it's getting to meet a new person and hear their story and hear their gift of gab and just like, shoot the shit essentially.
That's what I enjoy, to be honest with you. It's getting to talk to the actual person. Once we get past the officials and get past the titles, it's really just like, who are you? Why do you think how you do? That's me. So I get it.
That's 100% in there, man.
What about least favorite, man? Any memories that you're like, hell that?
Getting stood up, man. I've been stood up 3 times. So, it happens. I guess, like, at least when I stood you up, I didn't no call, no show. I'm talking about no call, no show 3 times. He played in the XFL, and he texted me a minute before he was supposed to be here and said, "Hey, I don't want to do this. I don't think it's good for me." And I said, "All right, cool." And then he got released from his team the next day. So that made all the sense.
Yeah. I mean, I've been stood up once myself, no call, no show. And I get it, especially when you center your show around one individual. You're featuring this guest to talk, and they don't even give you the respect. But I've kind of learned that was one time this is the 27th interview I've done live, and that was one show. I had one other person bail on me, but he contacted me because he had some medical issues, and it was legitimate. And we got him on as soon as we could. But like, no, man, if you got to cancel, I think you did right. You let me know the night before. It wasn't like I got up, expected you to be there, and then you told me you weren't going to be there. So, I mean, I think that's plenty of due notice.
There was a lot. Yeah. I mean, like that was a busy work week for me. And I was just I think I could have done it in the car, but I don't think that would have been the most appropriate thing. And, I've done interviews in the car before, but like I've told them like, "Hey, I'm in the car," and they're just like, "Yeah, we don't care." It's like that. That I get.
Yep, I understand it. And then people don't realize, like, unless you got your own thing, like sponsors or something worked out along the lines, you don't get paid. Like this right now, you're doing this for free. You're spending hour and a half, 2 hours to talk on the internet. I mean, with me, this, and I don't get paid for this. So sometimes things come up, life happens, bills have to get paid, especially nowadays with the way things going. I mean, you gotta have cash, no way around it.
No, I mean, I'm constantly grinding on something, you know what I mean? So I'm very lucky that, financially I've worked pretty hard to where, I'm able to figure some things out. But yeah, it's definitely not the most fun time, working a bunch of hours and all that goofy stuff. But I do it anyway, just because I love ball. I'm lucky I do make a little bit of money doing all the media and the writing and stuff. So there's something. But
it's all good.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yes, sir. Just had to ask. So I got like 3 more questions for you, and then we'll see if any of the fans have some questions. I know there was a couple that I didn't pick on yet just because we were in the middle of combo. So, man, if you could pick one athlete today to interview, who would it be and why? Anybody.
Oh, man. What's the dude they do in Fight Club? Abraham Lincoln, because he had a good reach.
I just didn't know if you valued anymore, anybody from the past or present, certain sports. So I just figured I'd ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question because it depends on the flavor of the week, right? Like, it just depends on the flavor of the week for me. I don't really know. Like I mean, I have a list of people in the local St. Louis area that I've reached out to that like I'd like to talk to. But I mean, I kind of hate that question. It's a good question on your end. I hate it's like in the end, I just to me, I'm just like, I don't know. Like you come on the show, I didn't talk to anyone. There's, I've worked with a very specific group of people over the past, 7-8 years of my life, and I hate to say that no one like impresses me anymore, but I could meet Taylor Swift tomorrow and not really care. Like that's kind of,
I think that's most of
like
us, really, man.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I could meet. I don't know. I can meet from the football space. I can meet Tom Brady. I can meet The Rock tomorrow. I feel like cool.
That's a big one.
Adorable. I don't get starstruck, man. Like not anymore. Been there, done that on certain aspects. I mean, if you wanted to go and like, let's do this. If you wanted to go like, I'll break it into 4 categories. Then how about that? I would like to meet in the CFL. I would like to meet and sit down. Do very casual by the fire pit type interview. I would like to meet probably Ricky Ray. I think would be a pretty cool one to talk with. Balancing one of the greatest quarterbacks in the CFL. I think that'd be either Ricky Ray or Warren Moon would be probably the 2 guys that come to mind the most. In the USFL, I think I could have a great conversation with Case Cookus and maybe Jamar Smith. And I would like to talk to them about their experiences, Jamar's from the bench compared to last year, or from 2022 where he was the guy up until the 3rd quarter of the championship game. In the XFL, I've talked with AJ a lot, but having him, in a more relaxed setting, that would probably be my guy. I'd say either AJ or, Luis Perez. Because I've seen some interviews with him, but I'd love to have Luis Perez,
Same.
With a drink in the hand, like, not getting, just a more, smoke a cigar and a drink. Because, I've known his agent for a little bit. I've done some work with his agent. So, I mean, I think Luis is one of the cooler guys in this community.
Agreed.
And, having him in a more relaxed setting, I think would be cool. And then there's in the NFL, let's see who. Man, this is going to sound weird, but in the NFL, I would like to interview Brian Hoyer.
Interesting.
Or Chase Daniel, like one of these backups who has just been around the league for so long with around all these great quarterbacks and talk to them and just like pick their brain. I think I could talk to Brian Hoyer or Chase Daniel for probably about like 4 hours.
Now Chase Daniel, he's a Missouri guy, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's originally from Texas, but he's went to Mizzou. He was on their Mizzou team till 2008. And I think that's when Mizzou was like the number 2 team in the country. They beat KU, and KU was like number 4. Todd Reesing was their quarterback for a little bit. But yeah, some great players on that team. I think Sean Witherspoon was on that team. Jeremy Macklin was on that team. Chase Kaufman was on that team. It was just, NFL guy. It's kind of like how you look at the University of Alabama or Georgia, where there's just like that guy. It was nonstop.
Yeah, I grew up part of my years in Southern Missouri, so I'm familiar. I remember those were the Mizzou heyday years. I mean, it was very rah Mizzou back then.
Where were you at?
Southeast Missouri, down at the bottom, little tiny town. What? Say it again. No, worse than that. Worse than that.
Jonathan.
Oh, not that bad. Town was called Crothersville. It's not far from Kennett.
Yeah, no, I know exactly where Crothersville is. It's funny. I was in Gerardo for a little bit, and when I told them I was going to Haiti, they were like, "Hey, Ty, exit 17." I was like, no, Haiti. They're like, yeah, exit 17. Why you gotta take? And I'm like, dude, old Crothersville. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my high school years were spent there, and part of some of my other life growing up, and some of my education career, unfortunately, wound up back there in that area. And
Is that
great.
Bollinger? Is that Bollinger?
I'm sorry, is that
what
Bollinger?
county? Is that
That is
Butler County?
Temiscot.
Temiscot.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's not the best area. It's not the worst over there for sure, but I know, being there, that's the biggest thing for me was being for the guys, being a mentor, trying to get guys not to, go straight to the streets. That was a hard job to do back there, but I miss it sometimes because, man, there are some great athletes that come out of that area.
Yeah, and they get washed out, man, just because they don't apply themselves. One name is Coney Ely, like about an hour north of you. He was a New Madrid County guy.
Yeah, I played him in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you know down there, and I mean, he was a Mizzou guy too, I think. So there's a lot of them, a lot of good guys at one point. But
yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, SEMO is on the up and up right now. I mean, this year they're 1-3, 1-4, but I mean, last year they were pretty good, and they got a couple guys on the NFL radar right now.
I was between there and Arkansas State in schools, and I chose Arkansas State instead. But if not, I would have ended up in SEMO myself.
Go Red Wolves.
It's okay. That place has come a long way now too since when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Grupe is a guy I know, and he went to Arkansas State before he ended up going to Notre Dame. So we're fans. We're fans of that over here.
Sounds good, dude. See, it's a smaller world than what we think. I see a lot of your content, and it was Missouri driven, so I knew that you were in that area somewhere. There's a lot of Missouri stuff, and
Yeah.
I knew it.
I mean, we don't have the private jet yet, so it's a little bit different.
If you do, come swoop me up. I'll roll with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. Right now is to get that private jet first, and then from there we'll be able to, make a little bit bigger impact on the content and whatnot.
Got to go after that Zoa or Tiamana sponsor there. Something big.
I don't know about that. I think right now the plan is to take my Ford Fusion to Texas and just hit or Ohio. I think is what we're going to tour Ohio and interview 34 head coaches in Ohio from
That's awesome. Ohio
Wesleyan to Ohio State. So need to get a couple more subscribers before I do that, before they let some dude, talk to Ryan Day, but we'll figure it out,
You'll get there, man. And just from viewing your work before we even discuss talking, I mean, you have legitimate content. It's not just shit that people are putting out every day. Your content is worth watching, and I'll speak that either from a fan standpoint, coaching, analytics, whatever you want. You can kind of find what you want in your content. So I think you'll get there, man.
I'm definitely trying.
Let's go with the next question, dude. What's like your long-term goals? I know you said you're going to pursue coaching now, pretty hardcore. I mean, is that what you're set on for a career in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to do that, and we're just gonna take it for where it goes. I'd love to. And my goal is to interview on the media side every college coach or every football program in the United States. I'm at 7 right now. Technically, you could say I'm at like 15 because I did short ones during GLVC Media Day, but I'm talking about having them in studio or going to campus. It's really something I love doing, and you just learn so much from these coaches, and you form the relationships, and it's fun to do it. I love doing it. It's not a big deal, right? with me to just go and talk ball with them and have a good time. Everyone's got a story, you take a guy like Coach Ball, his dad was the DPP for the Las Vegas Locomotives in the UFL, and he's coached a couple of Chiefs players and whatnot. So we talked about Coach Coach Babcock. It's Coach Stuber from Lindenwood was a country music star. Coach Bortle played with some of the best players in Missouri to come out, and he started his own program at Fontbonne University. Then you got Coach Mendez, All-American, offensive lineman at NAIA and JUCO, like Cali JUCO dude, and doing a bunch of cool stuff there. So they all have stories, and they're all pretty awesome dudes to talk to you. But definitely want to continue doing the coaching thing for as long as I can. As far as what level and how long, I don't really have a time set. As long as my bills are getting paid, I know I'll be happy doing it and loving it, and it's all that matters in my mind. And all that matters to my girlfriend as well is that I'm happy doing it. And money is extremely important. I'm not going to say ignorant to that. It's kind of why I did the contracting thing for a while. But on the flip side, I've made a lot of money doing some work, and I've made not so much money doing other work. And once your mortgage is paid, and I know that's really easy thing to say if you're financially well off. I get it, because I think the same thing sometimes. But you cannot buy peace of mind 100%. On that. So.
Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry. I've been coughing, man, so I didn't want to interrupt you. What I was saying is the way things have been going, you can't avoid any kind of payments. You're going to be paying taxes or something. Even the cost to live. It's not cheap right now.
Yeah, we're rich men of north of Richmond, right?
I don't want to get on that right now, but I'm sure we could have many conversations about that kind of stuff. So I got one more big question for you, and then I'll see if there's any more questions in the comments, dude. Where do you think the state of spring football will be? And then we have to get on the merger. I'm going to get your opinion after this on the merger. So,
dude,
let's just go to the merger then. Let's do that. So, what do you think about the merger in your own opinion? I'm not going to sit and do this long because this has been hashed out 1,000 times. Yeah. But I want to know what you think, man.
My personal opinion. I thought it was inevitable. The XFL has things that the USFL wants, and the USFL has things the XFL wants, and the XFL does things that they probably shouldn't do, and the USFL does things that they probably shouldn't do. So if you combine the two, you got your perfect spring league, right? One of those is, obviously St. Louis. That's kind of the pride and joy of having a spring football team is St. Louis, because in reality it is a market, and we, it kind of happens at that perfect time. Granted, we have the Blues and whatnot, but if, right before the Cardinals, and, if you can stagger the games for, when the Blues aren't here, people are going to, show up and have a good time. And it's, I think there's a lot of self-realization regarding the work ethic that some people had to put in, possibly at the top at the XFL level. And I think that kind of maybe messed with some, expectations. I think maybe budgeting wasn't, done appropriately, which it is what it is. But in the end, the real victims to this will always be the players and coaches, the guys who can say that they were professional football players. In reality, several of them aren't going to be able to say that anymore. So, in a perfect world, I'd like to see him appropriately budget this out and, buck for, bucket for, 16 teams this season and, just kind of next year go down to 12. And, I know there's the talk of the hubs and whatnots, and then have like a draft based off that, and, have all these players go through waivers so they air quote get like a free shot or a fair shot. But in the end, like what are we going to do? People are going to do what they want to do about it. I mean, it's so murky and ambiguous right now, and reports come out of this and that. And it was the hot topic for a little bit, but like in my opinion right now, I'm just kind of riding the wave, man. I'm not trying to speculate. I've kicked some tires. Heard some things that have been pretty much in line with what everyone else is hearing. Some people know things, some people don't, but in the end, this is the reality of the situation.
Understood. Yeah, makes sense, man. And I just wanted to gather your thoughts. I'm not going to get into it because the conversation is just that. It's very redundant at this point. We're here mostly opinions. We'll get a piece of news here and there, but even then, there's nothing official. So,
No, I'm 100% in agreement with you on it, man. Like it's all BS until it's not.
Yep. Agreed. And that's why I wanted to see what you thought, man. You seem very centered. You're not going to get hype off of a piece of news that drops. So I wanted to gather your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, it just is what it is. It's like none of my opinions are going to change what Redbird and Fox Sports does.
Exactly.
What it is.
Yeah, we just take it and we deal with it. That's our option because that's what we do. All right, dude. Let me ask a couple fan questions and then we'll be good to go. I appreciate your time this morning. Been an hour and a half so far, so thank you greatly.
Yeah.
So Rig Rocker said, "What do you find is the hardest thing to coach someone on?"
I think it's always kind of, like I said before, having the gaps in finishing the job that their parents did or didn't do, you know what I mean? Or, some people didn't have both their parents growing up, and it's, teaching some of these kids about life more than anything, having conversation about taxes, like how do you do this? It's kind of that, when you're kind of being a pseudo parent to an extent, and it's managing personalities is always fun because kids and people get in their feelings, and sometimes it's like, man, if I wouldn't yell at you, or I wouldn't like talk to you like this if I didn't care and want you to be the best version of yourself, and that's something like I think some people have some issue with is not really like people being disappointed or angry isn't from a place of hate, but it's a place of like caring and wanting to see you be like the best version of themselves.
Makes sense. I relate to that wholeheartedly. I feel like, especially in a high school program, somewhere like I said, Crothersville, those relationships are everything. You can't have a team if your guys don't make grades and get out on that field, or if they go to jail and get in trouble, or if, like I said, they just fail a lot. That was the number one thing I saw was no one cared about grades, and then it was time to get a scholarship. You got a 1.5, bro. You haven't even done your FAFSA, and you think a recruiter is going to take you serious? We've been telling you what to do since the get-go, and you haven't done it. There's a few guys that took off, but that's the sad thing.
Yeah, it's out of control, man. Like just the headspace in some people's, what's the word I'm looking for? The headspace in some people's, like, where they're at, what they think their goals are, and all that stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, that's not how the real world works, man. Like, you're gonna get kicked in the shin a couple times. You end up and take.
Yeah, when you're playing 2A football and you're the best in the league, you're the best in the division, you think you're really good. Then you go play college or you play with a 5A team somewhere and you get your head thumped. That's another reason to learn. You're not there yet.
It's something, man. It is legitimately something. But I'm here for the ride, man. Like I'm having a blast, and I love everything we're doing with everything, and it's a lot of fun, and that's all I can say about it.
Well, that's about all I got today, Pat. I appreciate you again for coming on, man. I've shared all your information, and I'll put it in the notes too, so it's easy to find. If you want to shout your socials before you hop off, please do. It is an audio show also.
Yeah, I mean, I'm by Pat Rifino on Twitter. I think I'm coach_Pat R on Instagram, and then I am Analyze and Educate on YouTube. I'll be uploading on Monday. Fun fact: I have. Oh man, help me out. Who do I have today?
Do you have a schedule on?
No, I mean some, because we're dealing with like DMs and stuff like that. Sometimes it's kind of just like last minute. I love what you got that schedule. I mean, I'd love to do that. It's just sometimes it's just like, hey, we got to move a day or two, and like there's so much. But I have Neil Rackers and Dave Brader, both of who are coming on. We're doing a little, 3 people at once type thing. But yeah, if you don't know who Neil is a NFL kicker for 12 years, and he's a high school coach now. He was an All-Pro in 2005, and he was on the Cardinals Super Bowl team that they lost to the Steelers. And then Dave is on the other end of the spectrum. He's a former baseball player who got hurt at Northwest Missouri State and became a punter. He became a punter, and he played one season with the Jaguars, and it just NFL's hard. It didn't work out, and he now coaches kids on punting and kicking and everything.
Interesting spot. I'll be looking for it, Pat. I've been watching your stuff even before we decided to have a conversation. So we'll definitely be looking for it, man. Thank you again for the appearance this morning. Appreciate the time spent. Check out Pat Rifino, guys. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I'll put it all in the notes. It's scrolling at the bottom right now. Appreciate your insight, dude. And I look forward to the content you create as we keep going in this crazy football world we got.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, sir. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks again, and hope you have a good day.
Amen. Later.
Bye-bye. That's it for us, guys. The early morning show. Man, I'm awake now. I wasn't awake when this started. I appreciate you all for listening. If you're listening after the fact, appreciate that also. Like, share, comment, please. Let us know what you think. Trying to get the social media game up a little bit, but honestly, as long as we keep putting out content, that's all I really care about. We're starting to get some good guest spots, good interviews, good interactions with the fans during the actual live show. So it's been a great time, and I appreciate you guys and the support. Like I've said, there's no profit here. This is all for the love. I'm hoping to expand out, maybe get some sponsors and such as we go, but that's not the goal. So the goal is to just interview and keep rolling and give people content. Appreciate the XFL and XFL board both. Thank you guys, XFL, for letting me cover, as well as XFL board for just kind of being a role model and putting our stuff on their site and you being able to use them for a resource. So thank you guys both. Tuesday and Wednesday next week, we have shows at 7:30 p.m. Central. The first one's going to be Taylor Russolino. The second will be Rig Rocker. You should know both of these names by now if you're an XFL fan. If not, no worries. Taylor Russolino is the Arlington Renegades kicker. He played on the championship team last year or last season. And then we have Rig Rocker, who's a super fan for the Houston Roughnecks. Should be a good lineup. If you have some comments and questions, shoot them my way. Don't mind asking. I'm looking forward to Tuesday's interview greatly. I've talked with Taylor before at a game, and he's a super down-to-earth guy, really cool. So it should be a great interview. Anywho, I think that's all for me. Oh, yeah. Big developments are underway for the status of the show. Well, I don't want to say anything until I got some more developed and things going, but definitely looking to take this beyond just the normal realm of XFL, especially considering the merger. So we'll see what happens, and I look forward to the future. But just pay attention, guys, and I'll drop some info as soon as possible. Anywho, it's been fun, been great. I love it, live it, do it. XFL, USFL, whatever. If you guys have any interviews or questions, like I said, my DMs are open on basically any platform. Let me know what you think. And again, appreciate you watching. Have a good night and enjoy your weekend. Friday the 13th. Be safe. Seriously. Bye-bye, y'all.